right. Good morning. Good morning, Josh. Glad we
Hello,
got
hello.
here. Small technical difficulties, but we're rocking and rolling now. We got it. Let me get you on the comments. We got people from CLA. I'm sure going to be popping in to say hi to us. How you doing today? You good?
I am fantastic, or at least
Where
no
you at?
complaints
Where
that
do you
more
where you
sleep or
live
more
at?
caffeine wouldn't cure. I live in southern New Jersey.
Oh, you were in New Jersey, right where I was. So when we were doing that book
Exactly.
club, you didn't even have to stay in the hotel. You got to go home.
Nope. Yeah, that was about 15 minutes from my house.
Oh yeah, that's yeah, that's the way to go. That's for sure. So, well, let me tell you. Let me. You sent me a little bio. I want to make sure I read this to you, give you the respect due to you, and then we'll get going on. I got some questions. I've got kids in college. I wish I would have met you before, but we will discuss a little bit on how I navigated, and then you tell me how
Sure.
I did. Okay. But today we got Josh Aronovitch. He's a graduate of George Washington University and Harvard Law School. Oh man, see, I'm gonna have to make sure I'm on point now. I didn't. The Harvard Law is like, wait a minute, I didn't know he was that smart. He lives in
Though,
Southern New Jersey.
one of the things I've learned is there's a big difference between education and schooling. And
that's
some folks have a lot of schooling, and others have a lot of education.
that's true. In 2008, he left law practice to launch Aronovitch Coaching Experience. Since then, he has helped over 1,600 teens and 20 somethings transform their lives. He helps them get into colleges, grad schools of their dreams by mastering standardized testings like SAT, LSATs, and more while becoming more powerful learners and leaders. He also coaches students on navigating the college admissions process with more joy and less stress, on finding their path, purpose, and passion in life. His team leadership coaching program, the Empowered Leadership Circle, is currently accepting applications. He is the Amazon best-selling author of The College of Their Dreams, What Every Parent Needs to Help Their Teens. Looking forward to this today,
Me too.
Josh. Quite a bio there. Glad that I get to spend some time with you and get from your wisdom. So I have college kids. You're right about that. I was a single dad. How I navigated it was all my kids went to a 2-year school locally, which is very affordable, and got all their GEs out. And one stopped there. That's what she wanted to do. And then she's went off to do some trade stuff. And then one is going to be graduating now in spring. He's getting a bachelor's. He went on to go to CSUN and got a bachelor's. And then my oldest boy, this is his college. You ready for his college? I said, son, what are you going to do in college? He goes, Dad, I want to have some fun. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get, I said, well, what are you getting a degree in? He goes, recreational management. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? He goes, I get to go wakeboarding and diving and going into caves.
Spelunking. Yep.
Yeah, and I just said, and that's what he did. And he just had the best time in college doing that. Luckily for me, some of the grants that we got, I saved all monies that my kids got. Any grant monies they got, and the state kind of took care of tuitions and stuff. So, they got to graduate college debt free and have some money in their pocket, because I just wouldn't let them use it. I think people frivolously spend their money on cars or Nintendo games, stuff like that. And so they stayed local. They didn't really go, so we didn't have out of state cost. But that's how I navigated the college thing. But now, my daughter's wanting to kind of go back. She went and with the psychology thing, but she wants to explore the art world. That's really what her passion is. And so when you're helping those out, when do you encourage parents to start the process of what that looks like? Junior high, high school? When do you encourage the process to get going?
So the short answer and sort of the sarcastic answer is now. No matter how old their kid is, the time to start the process is now. But in reality, it's true, because wherever you're at, you're exactly where you need to be. If you're a senior and you weren't focused on the college thing, maybe you have a kid who was struggling and wasn't sure he was even going to graduate, the time is never too late to start to think about college and what you want to do next in your life. And even if college is the right fit. For folks that are more overachiever types, for folks that have ambition, that want to go to an elite school, then the right time to start is really freshman or sophomore year. There's no such thing as starting too early, as long as you do it in a way that isn't about adding stress. It's
Mm.
not about
Mhm.
putting pressure. It's about helping your child to explore who they are, who they want to be, and how that translates to what they want to do. And those conversations, if handled right, are never too early. So a lot of the kids I'll work with the SAT side, because even though some schools are test optional doesn't mean what most people think it means. It means you can apply without it, not necessarily that you can get in without it. And for schools that are even
Ah,
moderately selective, test optional is all about getting people with crappy SAT scores to apply anyway, because then they'll just reject them and they'll boost their numbers of how many people apply, which makes them look more selective. So for those kids, getting an early start on the SATs is crucial, because by starting early, you can take it as many times as you want to. And each time you take it, you learn from it, you grow from it. Each question you get wrong becomes an opportunity to figure out why you got it wrong, what you need to do differently to get it right, and get it right the next time. So I'll have kids that start with my program freshman, sophomore year and keep coming back each time they take the SATs and keep getting higher and higher. And that's how I've gotten to an average score increase of 249 and a record of 550. So with the SAT side, I offer unlimited free repeats so people can start early and not have to pay more. On the college admissions side, on the figuring out where they want to go, what they want to do, those conversations usually start in sophomore or junior year. But again, the earlier the better, because I can help kids figure out how to lean in to the things they love in ways that not only look good for admissions and applications, but more importantly, help them get more joy out of the whole high school experience.
well, so Josh, you graduated Harvard Law, so
Mhm.
obviously you were an attorney, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I
What
like to
made
call
you just
myself a recovering attorney.
That's listen, when you need them, they are gold,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so it's like going to the dentist, man. You regret having to go in the office and what it's going to cost, but the outcome usually is pretty good. So,
Absolutely. And if you put
so
it off when you need it, it ends up costing you 10 times as much
that's
in money
correct.
and pain in
Yeah,
both cases.
there's nothing good about it. So, obviously you went to school for that. What made you decide that, you know what, I'm going to be a coach. I want to help people with college and stuff like that. What made you go ahead and go that route?
So, crazy enough, I went to law school never really fully wanting to be a lawyer. I went to law school, quite frankly, because most presidents went to law school. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be president when I grew up. So I went to law school. It was the path of least resistance. It was that next shiny brass hoop to jump through. And I loved law school. I loved debating ideas. I liked the intellectual challenge of it. I liked the people I met. But when I actually started law practice, again, not fully what I intended, but the money was good, the job offers were there, and I started working for a great firm in Chicago. But I realized pretty quickly that I liked it, but I didn't love it.
Mhm.
And it fed my wallet, but it didn't feed my soul. And I was doing private equity, mergers and acquisitions, sort of big corporate deal type stuff, like sort of like flipping houses, but flipping companies and writing those contracts. So it was proofreading 300-page merger agreements till 3 a.m. It was negotiating the deals. It was working with sort of the business guys, but it was 20% of it was great, was the relationships, was the negotiating, was the complexity. But the other 80% was dotting I's, crossing T's, was that grunt detail work. And I can do that work. I'm good at it, but I get no joy from it. So I realized, do I really want to keep working 60 to 90 hours a week for the rest of my life, doing work I don't love to make rich people richer? Like, no. So I ultimately moved from Chicago back to my hometown in South Jersey, worked for a firm in Philly for a little over a year, and said, you know what? It's not the firm. This is not my calling. So I gave
Mm.
my 2 weeks notice, and I'm like, well, shit, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So I gave some time. I did some soul searching. I'd saved some money, and I realized that when I had been happiest work-wise was when I was paying my way through law school, teaching LSAT classes. Now, the LSAT, sort of the older, meaner, angrier brother of the SAT, is the standardized test to get into law school. And I worked about 30, 60 hours a week while I was in law school, and that paid for half of law school teaching LSAT classes. And I realized that I don't love standardized tests. They're ridiculous. They're stupid. They shouldn't count as much as they do. But I loved understanding what made them tick and then understanding what made my students tick, how they think, how they learn, how they process information, how they need to shift their mindset in order to be able to master these standardized tests, which are way easier than they look on the surface. And I loved it. I loved the 5 a.m. text. Oh my God, I got into Stanford. I got into Harvard. I went up 20 points on the LSAT. And I called up my old boss. I'm like, all right, can I license your content and do test well LSAT coaching in South Jersey and Philly? No. He's like, no? What do you mean no? I'm not used to saying no when it's important. And he's like, I wish I could, but I can't even do that. I gave these other folks right of first refusal when I was drunk, and I can't get it back, and I can't even teach in those areas. I can only teach in Boston and New York. I'm like, all right, well, crap. So I thought about it, and I'm like, I can't do my own LSAT thing at this point, because back then it'd only been 5 years since I was in law school teaching his stuff. I didn't want to accidentally steal his property and do it his way. So instead, I shifted to SATs. And I pretty well known in my town. I had actually run for mayor in 2008. Thank God I didn't win that election. I was not ready. And I ran against someone who'd been in town council for 12 years, had all the support, all the organization, all the money. Somehow came within 500 votes, which shocked the hell out of everybody. But glad I didn't win that election. I was not ready for that kind of responsibility at that point. So went SATs. Took every practice test in the market, read every book, developed my own approaches and strategies, and started around my 12th grade health teacher's dining room table with her daughter and 2 of her friends. And I went from those 3 kids in October of 2008 to almost 1,700 since. And I love it. I don't love the SAT. The SAT is just a context. It's just an excuse. It's an excuse to help people grow. It's an excuse to help people choose their growth and become more powerful versions of who they are. That's why I feel like you're a kindred spirit, because what you do in the martial arts world, I do in the college prep, standardized test prep, career and life coaching world. I help people figure out who they want to be and what they need to do to get from here to there.
Yeah, I think you are definitely in kindred spirits, because in a martial arts world, we're trying to work on mindset for you to overcome the objections that hit you on a daily, right? Or the bullying, per se, or if you're smart, you're made fun of if you're smart, you're made fun of if you're stupid, you're made fun of if you're fat, if you're skinny. It doesn't really matter. You need to develop the strength in your mind. Isn't it awesome that you use a martial arts to make you feel like you can do things, right? Because I often say this as in my world. I think it's even true in a kindred spirit way. That's really good that you said that, because if you're not educated, right, hard time to read and all that kind of stuff, and you go into a room of people, you already feel like pressure and all that goes with it, right? Like, I'm not worthy of being here. Well, I think that a lot of people walk around, if they have no sense of self-defense, or they, if something happens and I couldn't defend myself or I couldn't defend my loved ones, they walk around the same way. They walk into a thing with, I don't walk into a room, I walk into a room and I start picking out people that, where I'm going to sit and how I'm going to deal with something. It's just kind of a weird mindset that I have, but that's just that's just how I'm built. And so same thing I think with education. When you feel like you can't read well and you're in a group, I think that's really good that I'm going to use that a little bit more.
It's about helping people figure out how to go from a place of fear and low self-worth to a place of confidence that they can handle any situation, and where they truly feel like they're in charge of their lives and their future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think for sure the coaching, isn't it fun to coach those kids too, by the way?
It's amazing. I love it because it's about really, I say it like this. I have this unique double vision where I can truly see someone as they are and make them feel seen, which is so important. But I can also see them as they're capable of growing into. I can see them as they'll get to once they develop, once they own their own power. And being able to help plant those seeds and plant those breadcrumbs and lead them to where they're capable of growing into and beyond is such a privilege, such a gift. And it's so much fun seeing where my former students are a year, 5 years, 10 years later as they go through life and develop and seek on new challenges. I love when my SAT students come back to me for help getting into law school, to med school, to business school.
Well, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for almost 15 years. I started in October 2008.
So now you're 15 years into it, because I know in my world, so I've had my school going on 33 years, right?
Nice.
And so I also now I get students that I taught kids now coming in.
Yes.
And it'll be the next generation of the kids coming in to do.
Yes.
And they remember how they felt when they were going through, or they were getting black belts, and what martial arts meant to them. And now they have their children here. So you're starting to come up on that same
and
thing.
What's fun too, so I have two of my newest clients. One of them is the adult daughter of my 12th grade Spanish teacher, who is prepping for this school leadership praxis. It's a test to become a principal or assistant principal. And another new client is actually the parent of a former client, 60-year-old gentleman who's going back to college to get his associate's degree. And his last class is macroeconomics, and not having had algebra in 40 years, needs a little bit of support, which is awesome.
It's so I did a class. I don't know. It's been 10 years now, but I went back to school with my my girlfriend and I. That we went back to school, awesome. And we did a personal finance class, right? Mm-hmm. And so we felt this will be safe, and we'll learn some stuff, and let's see what it's like to be back in school. And we're just watching the young kids on just how inexperienced they are in life, or where they think. We had a really good teacher though, but it was, you know me. If you know me, if you've been around me, I'm pretty competitive.
Oh yeah.
Right. Now my girlfriend's from the Philippines too, so she's Asian. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't. I tell her I should already get a curve, in schooling because of it, because we got a stereotype. So we went through, and her and I were neck and neck for the first one. And I remember this. You'll get a kick out of this story. I said, we're on our last test, and we have a bet that we're going to buy each other dinner on who gets the top spot in class, number one. So I get done, and she gets done with her test before I did. I brought mine up, and I said, well, what do you think, Professor? And he goes, well, Mark, I can't discuss other students' papers with you, but she is going to have a good restaurant to pick out. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so she beat me by, I don't know, 4 points. And man, I've lived that ever since that day. So I did have fun going back and having a little bit of college. College wasn't for me, Josh. I don't know if you heard my story. I'm surprised that I'm an author in what I do now. I'm more of a just like you said, there's education comes different ways.
Absolutely.
And I went to the school of hard knocks. It's this game of life that you play, right? You go off to the college, or you go off working. And I tried college, man. I don't know why it wasn't for me. I just didn't. There wasn't a joy to it at all. Maybe if I was playing sports in college, there would have been a little bit of joy. But I just wasn't good enough for college.
So there's a number of possibilities. One is that college wasn't for you. The other is that college wasn't for you because you didn't have the right supports. And there are a lot of folks who think college isn't for them, or who struggle academically because they don't think and learn the way they're taught. But those are some of the folks I like working with the best, because I can help them learn how they learn and learn how to make it work for them. So much of learning is figuring out and realizing that you can't just take what the teacher gives you and just accept it at face value, that you need to put your own spin on it. You need to seek out stuff from other sources. You need to be in charge of your own education, in the sense that you see the connection between what you're learning and what you want to do with your life. So finding that connection between the motivation, the goal, the vision, and what you're learning, and to make sure you're learning the right things from the right people. Sometimes it's a matter of it's not the right time, it's not the right place, or it's not the right subject. But I think that while, yes, there are definitely people who there are other better paths for them, I think there are also people who just need the right support and guidance to make college work for them and serve their goals.
I think that's good advice too. You're right. I didn't, it's how my siblings are so different. I'm the oldest boy,
Mhm.
and Jose's on here uh, thanking you for having his son in your SAT program. So
Yeah, Noah's great. It's a pleasure having him in class.
yeah, Jose, he's a good dude, good leader, good dad. I do talk a lot of smack about him though, but
Of course.
if I didn't love him, I wouldn't talk about him at all. So I my brother is my brother has a master's degree in apologetics. You know what I mean? So he's the bookworm. Even when he speaks and stuff like that, he likes notes and he's very organized. And I am so not. I'm such a visionary. I can do
Mhm.
things off the cuff.
Yes.
I can't write notes. I don't do any of that stuff. Even when I speak, I
Mhm.
don't. I have a kind of an idea. This is where I'm going to go, and then the room will take me where I'm going.
Exactly.
And
I'm the
same
same
thing
way.
here with the podcast. That's why I tried okay, let's go over these questions. And you know what? Two questions in, bam, it takes a left turn because of something somebody said. And I'm like,
For
well, we're
sure.
going down
It's
this
got to
rabbit
flow. It's got to flow where it's meant to flow.
hole. That's correct. And one thing I did tell my boys though, and my
Mhm.
daughter about college. Isn't it funny? I couldn't stand it, but all my kids went.
Mhm.
So they all did some sort of college. And I've encouraged them all. I said, I'll tell you what, as a businessman, what I needed the most that I could have gotten out of college, and I wish I had a mentor push me to do this, was English on how to write properly, business letters,
Yes.
how to formulate your thoughts onto paper and use the language properly,
I mean,
right?
that notion of communication, both written communication, verbal communication,
Yes.
and nonverbal communication in person meetings and body language. Those three forms of communication are absolutely crucial. And strengthening your communication skills is a huge part of high school, college life. The other thing I think, and what part of what I encourage folks to think about in terms of deciding if and where to go to college, is to focus on relationships. Who do you need to know and connect with in order to get where you're called to get in life? And going to schools where you can meet those professors, make those connections, meet those peers. Folks that are going into business, going to a high level business school is not just about what you learn, it's about who you meet that are eventual investors in your businesses. When you talk about the credentials, there are some fields where you need a certain degree or you need a certain credential to be taken seriously. So
Yeah.
it's the skills and knowledge, it's the relationships, and it's the credentials. Those are the three things that you're going to college for. And what your desired field is, what your desired path is, depends on where is the right place to get those. And the other is just the quality of the experience itself. Like your son who did the scuba diving and the spelunking and different things. You want a place you're going to enjoy the process of going to school. You want somewhere you actually want to live. So that matters too.
Yes, that's 100%. I think that's a couple things I said because I'm more of an entrepreneur. I said that I needed to understand accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I need to understand. I need to do speech so I can get up and talk to people
Yep.
because you're not going to be an entrepreneur and you can't talk to people. It doesn't work.
Absolutely. Being an
And
entrepreneur, more than selling a product or a service, about selling a vision. And if you
yes,
can't speak and sell that vision, you're not going to have people follow you.
correct. Well, I think and I encourage them. I said, if you're going to do anything, at least go down there and get these general ed so you have an understanding of life because all those things are going to come back and help you in life.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way that won't be something that serves you well. And so I just didn't do that. So it took me a long time to I had to go over hurdles and different things because there's certain things that I couldn't do. And I watched my dad also. He's still with us and stuff, but my dad's often talk, he would Josh, he would it's kind of a bummer when I listen to my dad talk about it because he tears up about it. He says he was so good with people. He could manage multi-million-dollar companies.
Mhm.
Companies wanted him to go to VP, and my dad would turn it down on the men's that he couldn't spell well, and he
Mm,
felt like he couldn't do it. And I said, Dad, man, that's why you hire people.
exactly.
Okay.
You hire people who can do what you can't or can do things better than you. So much
Yes.
when you get to a certain level is about who you surround yourself with and who you bring in to execute your vision.
Yes. And and I see him look back on probably opportunities that passed him by on the simple fact he didn't have the confidence to do it, and then maybe not realize you just hire somebody to do all that stuff. I know that's what I do when I'm not an organized human being. So I get people around me that can do that. I'm a
Mhm.
visionary. I'll take you to your next level, and I'll coach you right where you need to go, and get you all riled up, and see you through difficult times. But I'm not, I get people around me that can shine what I do. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's so good. I guess that's what you're doing here is when you're help coaching. How do you well give me an example. Give me an example of some of the young kids are like, hey, coach, I'm just struggling, and how you take them to get through their struggles and on to the next thing, and have their breakthrough that they need to have.
So, a great example is math. There are a lot of kids who think they suck at math, but the reality is they just haven't had a teacher who knows how to teach them math the way they learn. So, with kids like that, it's about helping them to realize that it is not their fault, that there is a difference between intelligence and knowledge. Knowledge is just knowing shit. You either know it or you don't. You may not have been exposed to it. You may have been taught it, then forgot it, but it's gaps in your knowledge. That doesn't mean you're not smart. That doesn't mean you don't have the ability. Intelligence is your intellectual horsepower, is your ability to do stuff with your knowledge, is how you put the pieces together, how you create the vision, how you execute. But if you don't have those pieces of knowledge, you can't use the intelligence properly. So part of it is helping them to figure out where the gaps in their knowledge are and to fill in those gaps and to recognize that getting something wrong or making a mistake is not something to be ashamed of or to beat yourself up about. It's an opportunity for growth and learning and fixing it. So you should be happy when you get something wrong because that's your chance to improve on it and fix it. So then every time they get a question wrong, it's all right, let's dig in and see how we can fix this. Let's figure out where that gap in the foundation is. But then a lot of people that are more visionary, a lot of people that see the big picture, can't learn how to do math step by step. When teachers try to dumb it down and make it easier, it actually makes it harder. So what they need is to see the full picture. They need to know not just what the formula is, but why that's the formula, what it means, where it comes from. And then once they get it, it becomes easy. So they don't get it because it's being taught at too low a level, not because it's being taught at too high a level. So it's being able to figure out those kids and what they need and teaching it in a way that they can see how all the pieces fit together.
So, Josh, you're more than just coaching SATs. If
Oh, yeah,
you are, if people are needing help in navigating even classes, then that's something else that you do. Then is that correct?
for sure. So the way I used to jokingly say, I will teach and coach my students in anything they need, even if I have to teach myself first. Got me in trouble once. Had a student came to me. She was brilliant. She had actually already gone up 550 points on the SAT working with me, which is still to this day the record. And her mom says, Josh, you'll help Jeannie get into college? I said, of course. So she showed me her transcripts, her grades, her activities. Were working out the strategy. She's like, I wanted to get into a good school and get a full scholarship. So we can do this. And then I realized that even though she has a perfect 4.0 GPA, she never got less than an A in a class. She was so afraid of getting a B. She took the easy way out. She didn't take the harder classes. In fact, she had taken honors physics. God forbid she got a C on the first test and she dropped down to regular physics. So I said, Susan,
Uh,
this isn't going to work for the top schools because there's three legs of the stool. There's your grades, there's your standardized test scores, and there's academic rigor. There's how much you've challenged yourself. And she's going to fail on that third leg. So she looks at me and she says, so Josh, how do we fix this? She was a business person. She had never gone to college. This was her first daughter going to college. And she's like, how do we fix it? I said, well, it's not going to be easy. In fact, it may even be too little too late, but it's worth a try. Here's what I recommend. Even though she's already dropped honors physics, have her take the AP physics test in May without taking the class and shock the hell out of everyone by getting a 4 or 5 on it. And then have her take at least 3 AP classes as a senior, get A's or high B's in all of them, and write an essay about learning from mistakes and embracing challenge. She loved the idea. Her daughter loved the idea. And the other shoe dropped. She said, so Josh, you'll teach Jeannie AP physics? Yes. AP physics was my worst class in high school. In fact, it was the only class in high school I got a B for the year in instead of an A. So I went to the high school, met up with an old teacher. It wasn't one of my teachers, but I knew the guy. He gave me a bunch of books and said, good luck teaching her AP physics. So I read the books. I did the practice. I taught myself AP physics so I could teach it to Jeannie. After a bunch of one-on-one coaching in AP physics, she got her 4 on the AP physics test. She got A's and a high B in AP Calc, History, and Bio as a senior. And she ended up with a full ride honors program, University of Delaware, where she was a biomedical engineering and kinesiology double major. And she just graduated from University of South Carolina Medical School last year. So I took on a challenge that I was not prepared for because I knew one of my people needed it. And that to me is one of my favorite aspects of what I do, is the chance to learn alongside my students and model for them how to learn things that are challenging. That's why I've had great success with MCAT clients, even though I never took organic chemistry, helping them prep for med school and improve their scores and get into medical schools. I love the process of learning and showing how it can be a source of joy instead of stress. I love taking a playful, explorative approach to the whole process of not just learning a topic or learning how to get into a college or career or grad school, but learning who you are and what you're destined to do. That's what brings me joy, is helping people choose that growth and do it in a way that's fun. That's my best compliment, is when people tell me they're shocked at how fun it was.
Yeah, that definitely is a I've never seen school to be fun. Well, it was fun when I went as an older, because I have a different appreciation for it.
Exactly.
And I have different life where I really don't care. I care about how well I do, but I'm not going to beat myself up every day because I don't do well. You know what I mean?
And that's part of it, is embracing the things you can control and letting go of the parts you can't. That I love winning. I'm a very competitive person like you.
That's right. Let's go.
But it's not about winning. It's about fighting to win. It's not just about the outcome. It's about the growth in the process of striving for the outcome. And that's where the real joy is. And I think letting go of the attachment to the ultimate outcome and focusing on the process makes it such a greater joy, whether it's school or whether it's any kind of competition.
100% super kindred spirits in that same thing. That's the mindset of when I was competing, when I was doing all the stuff that I did in world championships and stuff like that. It really, sometimes the win's a letdown, to be honest with you. It's like, oh my gosh, it's over.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got to kind of dabble into what's next so that you can build it to the next thing. So it's so true. And if that's the mindset you're given, you know, you ought to stop calling yourself coach and start calling yourself sensei.
Yeah.
Because it's about the same thing. You know, sensei part means teacher anyway. So
sure.
I think that is such a powerful thing that you're doing students wise. Now you're able to do this from afar, right? Whether you get on with them and have a Zoom. You know why? I can tell right here, just being with you for a little bit, Josh. I mean, we got to see each other a little bit, but you know, being here with you and listening to you talk, the reason people gravitate towards you or how they gravitate towards me is the passion of what we have for what we do.
Absolutely.
And I can feel it. I can feel it even through here that you just dig it. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, this is joy. This is love. This is when you lead with love and pour love into everything you do, you show up different. And I think that kids are amazing bullshit detectors, much better than adults. And if
Yes.
you are not fully aligned with who you are and what you're doing, if you're not walking the talk of what you say, they see right through you and they tune you out immediately. So when kids come across someone who is legit and who is who they say they are and who cares about them so much they can't help but care about themselves more, it lands and it works. But yeah, I do this from anywhere. I've actually going to be in Texas for the next 3 weeks. I'll be coaching just as normal from there. And it actually, as horrible as COVID and the pandemic was for so many people, for me, it was a gift because it kicked me out of my complacency and made me grow. All of a sudden, in-person local SAT coaching wasn't a thing. And I had 3 months of no income. So what did I do? I posted on social media. I did my first SAT class on Zoom, had about 100 people. I was vulnerable and 100 people shared the post. And I had over 20 kids in that first group SAT class on Zoom. And since then, I've had clients in 17 states and 6 countries. It's remarkable how the way the world has shifted has enabled me to reach and help so many more people.
That's the weirdest thing about it, right? It didn't. I can see how it goes well there. When in the height of COVID, of course, we started already just going ahead and doing classes online and doing all that kind of stuff. But teaching martial arts, especially something like jujitsu, that's just not jujitsu. Is I mean, you're face to face, and you gotta put hands on.
Yeah.
I can teach how to punch and how to move and stuff like that. But we kept our business alive, but it never reached.
I think the technology is probably about 10 to 15 years away.
Yes.
But imagine when you can actually wear a VR suit and grapple with someone in another country in real time.
It's so awesome, right?
Incredible.
Yeah, I can see that at some point how awesome that would be. So, but we grew through that also. Now, one thing it did do, it does two things, right? So here's the thing, Josh. When I got done, when you and I were, because I think you won in the competition too, right? You were one of the winners of the speaker compos that we were just in.
No, I won the one in Niagara Falls last year.
Niagara Falls last year. Okay, that was yours.
I came in second place there.
Yes. Yeah. And
I'll
tell you what, that story,
not quite reaching that high since, but got San Antonio coming up next week.
So that's awesome. I'll be in San Antonio on the 17th. I'm going to Daniel Gomez's thing.
Nice.
But the speaker competitions that we did in New Jersey, that story you just told, though, that's a powerful story about what you did and about how you help people with mindsets. And then if you can't do it, you figure out how to do it to help somebody else. And you tell that story. That's a speech story right there. Because I was like, listen to that, man. And then she went to med school and all that. Come on. You can't sit back and just go, man, that's flipping awesome. Okay. Because in my head, I'm like, there's no way I'm picking up a bunch of AP books and trying that. You know what I mean? I just couldn't do it. Daniela's on saying hi.
Hey, Daniela.
And so
yeah, she'll also be in San Antonio for Jesse and Desiree's event.
I think that, I don't know. I think about that story, bro, that you just told. And it was just something that was. So after that, here's the power of Zoom that we're kind of talking about. After the competition in New Jersey, I evaluated myself pretty good, because that's what I do when I compete anyway. When I compete, man, I compete to win. I don't compete to show up. Okay. It's just not my mindset. And I've done that once before in a world championship. I talked about it. That was my speech on my mindset wasn't right. And I lost just a whole year of training lost in a second. Right. And so I decided that, okay, when I go back, I'm looking up this Toastmasters thing. So that's what I did. And that Toastmaster thing, I've been killing it in that thing. And I was amazed at going in there. There's really good. I like getting apps. I like getting feedback right after your speech. I like being evaluated.
Absolutely. That's how you grow. That's how you learn.
Right. And I killed it my first time. I mean, I have a little bit of an edge because I do this podcasting and I'm comfortable in a group, but I wish it was live. That's the only thing, right?
Yeah,
Because
there's a
I was
different
told, you
energy when
see, I
you're in the
use my
room.
hands and stuff all the time.
Yes.
But one of the things he tells, he goes, your hands go out of camera all the time. See, I don't
Mm,
think about that on stage.
right.
I'll be like, man,
Yeah.
let's
Because
go.
on stage, you want to be bigger. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Isn't that weird? And
Mhm.
so they're saying you got to have a little bit more closer to your face and stuff like
Right.
that. And so I was like, it was
But it's
just
those
been
little things that you don't think about when you're doing it because you just flow, you just do.
that's correct. And it's so it's it's been so awesome being part of the Toastmasters
Mhm.
that my last compliment from him, he goes, I don't know, we had a lieutenant from somewhere on there, and he goes, you had the makings of making an international speaker
Mm.
in Toastmasters. And I said, when can I do it?
Yeah.
And he goes, you got to, I guess you have to go through some steps because
Mhm.
I tell everybody, I told my group, I said, listen, if nobody's speaking, I will speak every single time if nobody
Mhm.
wants to step up and do it. So if you need a filler
Yep.
or whatever, and then there's an evaluator too. So I'm going to do an evaluation on somebody
Mhm.
next, so I can learn how to be a coach in what I
Right.
do, right? And so that New Jersey thing was but you got powerful stories, Josh, man.
Mhm.
When you go to San Antonio, I think you need to speak about that on what
Yeah.
you did there and the mindset of how you help get the mindset right and
Mhm.
bring joy into learning. The kids are so Josh, how stressed are these kids? And my kids hated high
Beyond.
school, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know
No, I do
anybody that
too.
just calls up and says, man, high school is the best thing ever since sliced bread? It's so
There's
fun.
a few, but they're rare.
Yeah, but they're the bookworms, right? They're the ones that
Not
thrive.
necessarily. They're often the drama kids. They're the ones that are just so invested in some other aspect of high school that it
Mm.
just the joy sort of spills over into the classes, or the ones that just love achieving whatever's put in front of them. Are the ones that sort of love high school, or the ones that don't really care so much about the grades are sort of naturally smart enough to get decent grades with a minimum of effort. But they're the ones it's about helping them figure out what would happen if you actually took off the parking brake. What would happen if you actually tried? What could you accomplish then instead of doing
Right.
the minimum to get an acceptable result?
That exactly. That's all true. So true. So
But
true.
yeah,
So true.
back to your talking about sort of the competitive and the speaking. I haven't beaten myself up over not placing in recent speaking competitions. And the first one I did, well, the first one I did, I went over time, so I was disqualified. The second one I did was Niagara Falls last year for the Mike Story event with Jesse and Desiree Cruz. And I was absolutely blown away by how incredible the speakers were and just the way they transformed their pain into passion, into purpose, the incredibly traumatic stories and what they've been through. And I had serious imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't belong on the same stage as these folks. They are so much more powerful, so much more inspirational. I don't have those stories. I don't have those experiences. I just can't compete. So I went up and in my first speech, I talked about how when I was 14 years old, I literally fell off a mountain and got lost alone in the Ural Mountains of Russia for over 7 hours. And I told that story. And then the next day was a 7-minute business story. And I talked about what I do and how I transform lives. And they came out at the end and said that the judges were deadlocked and they could not come to a consensus. But there were 3 finalists. I was absolutely in shock when they called me out as one of those 3 finalists. And they pulled the word out of the hat, like you saw in New Jersey.
Right.
And I got community, and I killed it. And I thought, as much as I did not expect or thought I would be on that stage as a finalist, once we did those 1-minute speeches, I thought I was going to win. So I was disappointed, of course, when I didn't. At the same time, the people I was competing against were so incredible. You can't think, oh my God, I should have won. I was robbed. No, not at all. I was competing against incredible speakers and human beings, and the ones who won deserve to win. But at the same time, when you compete again and you don't place, you think, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? How can I learn and grow from this? And part of it is, I think the universe often gives us not what we want, but what we need. And part of what I needed was to set my ego aside and focus less on the competition and more on just becoming a more and more powerful speaker, better able to connect, better able to inspire, better able to use my words to help people grow, whether they're my clients or not. And then the chips will fall where they fall. I'll win or I won't, as is needed or important at that moment. But that if I really go in and deliver so much value, then ultimately it doesn't matter if I win or not.
So good. So good. Because I had that same, I talked to Emilio and Danielle about it, afterwards. I'm like, man. And listen, I told the story too when I had to compete. And when you have to compete against a disability,
Mm-hmm.
that is a hard road,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because first of all, you seem like a dick if you want to beat him, right?
Mhm.
So, you're like, I'm just an asshole.
But you
And
also seem like a dick if you don't, if you
that's
go easy, because then you're not respecting them.
that's right. It's
You're
just
damned
like
if you do, damned if you don't.
it's like fighting a girl. They can punch you and you can't punch them back. You know what I mean? In martial arts class.
Mhm.
And so I knew that when I was speaking, when you have the last one in New Jersey, I would have probably went a different direction after reading the room, because all the
Mhm.
speakers had these stories of, Marilyn with losing her baby and dealing with 9/11, or a female that's coming out of this relationship where she's getting the shit beat out of her and she becomes this champion out of it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Those are things that are hard to, you know, beat as far as competition wise,
Mhm.
you know. And so you think on, okay, how do you move the room? How do you move the room in speaker competitions? And I had to evaluate myself. I spent a lot of time that weekend evaluating. I'm like,
Mhm.
what the frick am I doing wrong? That's pissing me off, right?
Mhm.
And I
But sometimes the
you know,
answer is you're not doing anything wrong.
that's correct. That's the same conclusion I came with. I said, okay, you're not doing anything wrong. It's not your subject. It's not that I'm not moving somebody. It's you know, maybe whatever the judges are too, that all comes into play too. Whatever kind of moves them at that time.
And that's a parallel when students are trying to get in to the Harvards and the Stanfords and the NYUs and the elite colleges that accept less than 5%. You can have a perfect SAT score, you can have a 4.0 GPA, you can have 10 AP classes and still not get in, because a lot of people at that level have all that. So the question isn't, how can I compete with that? How can I do what they're doing? Because ultimately, the only person you're truly competing with is you. So the question is, how can you more fully embody, absolutely, unapologetically, and authentically everything you are, and encapsulate that into a speech? How can you be not more of what they are, but how can you be even more Mark Cox? How can you truly lean into what makes you you in a way that makes you stand out and leaves no doubt?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, all awesome advice for sure, 100%. I learned a lot. I learned a lot that weekend, and that's why I decided. I said, "Well, I'm going to do this Toastmaster things." I
Mm-hmm.
looked at it a long time ago and never really kind of did it because I didn't really have the passion for it like I do now. Now it's a different thing. It's something that I want to do now. I want to take my martial arts, like you said, from the mat until into everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much about uh, um, I've learned so much about myself on that mat, on how it goes into what we do out in the real world, that it needs to be shared. Um, Yeah, Danielle, she's always in the background
Mhm.
pushing me, pushing.
She's
So
amazing. Talk about an absolutely incredible human being that's making a mark on this world and on everyone that comes into her orbit.
yeah, she's awesome, man. She's awesome. And I taught her how to break a board.
Nice.
Plus, because we said it was Emilio's face, so there's that. Uh, so, and so we definitely had fun doing that. Yeah, it was good, man. It was a probably the most powerful thing that happened to me. Isn't it weird? We're we're there to launch books,
Mhm.
but it's the competition that kind of pushed me over. There's two things I learned over there, Josh, to be honest with you. There's two things that I learned. First of all, I was trying to understand myself. I was real quiet after the competition. I was just kind of listening to speakers and taking notes, sitting in the back of the room so I can observe everything.
Mhm.
And I observed a couple of things there. There's a lot of speakers, but not a lot of listeners. And what
Mm.
started in the I almost felt bad for him, right? At the end of the day, because I did not leave that room until the last speaker was done. I just
Same.
felt that, hey, if you're here to import some wisdom, then I'm going to stick here and I'm going to listen to it. I came here
Mhm.
for this weekend to listen. That's exactly what I'm going to
Mhm.
do. And I thought it disrespectful on how many people, by lunchtime, they go have lunch, they don't come back, and they're, whatever life gets in their way. But I saw the poor last speaker of the day, and I'm like, hardly anybody's in this room listening to. And he had some good stuff,
Yeah.
dude. He had some
I
good.
was second last, so I felt
Right.
that.
And I remember you being there, but I got a lot out of yours. I couldn't wait to have you on podcasting after listening to you talk.
Thank you.
Right. But do you understand what I'm saying there? Because
I
you were
do.
second to last, right? And I'm just like, man, why are you doing that? If you're gonna show up, man. You got to show up in everything you do. You don't show up just to be the main event on the stage and get your stuff out to sell whatever book it is. And you got to be there pushing everybody else up, pushing everybody to the front, making everybody rise and being there because it is hard. What I can I can teach you one-on-one just like I can do a class of 25 or 30 people.
Mhm.
I thrive on the energy. I love the energy
Mhm.
of a big class.
For
It
sure.
gets me all amped up. But I'm going to do the same thing one-on-one. You're going to get 100% of me one-on-one just like you get 100% of me in
Absolutely.
class.
Yeah, there's no in between. You show up and you show up big, you show up as you are and you give. And that doesn't matter if it's a small group, if it's large group, if it's one-on-one. Really, how we do one thing is how we do everything. Whether it comes to fitness, whether it comes to education, whether it comes to health, whether it comes to relationships, whether it comes to business. How we do one thing is how we do everything. And if one of those spheres of life is out of whack, it inevitably impacts the others.
100%. Yeah, those are the two big takeaways I took away. I've already kind of started. I've already got the cover, kind of working on the cover of my next book. My next book, I figured I wanted something along. How you guys, Jose's winning the day, yours College of Their Dreams, and kind of giving them step by step. I wanted to go in that direction next, and so I'm my next book is titled Black Belt Tactics: Strategies in Life and Business.
Nice.
And taking the strategies of getting to becoming a black belt and how do you implement these into life, right? And into these principles. And you're going to see they intercede. Everything kind of
Mhm.
intercedes anyway. People are just mesmerized by black belts. I don't know why. They just are. There's a mystique around it, or there's a confidence around it. It's put me in places that I can never think. Now, you wanted to be a president. I don't know if you know this about me, but I got to tie a black belt around Ronald Reagan
Nice.
in his office. I got to give him an honorary black belt. So he's on my black belt wall, and his chief of staff at the time.
That's awesome.
I was in his office and I tied a black belt around Ronald Reagan's, and we talked about martial arts, and he wanted to know how to punch. And I didn't understand how auspicious that occasion was until I look back on it now. Cause my oldest boy now was in that room too. He was a little kid,
Mhm.
he was trying to pull Reagan, down. And, Reagan gave us a pen and a yo-yo. And I was able to, when Michael got married, I made a shadow box of that time. I said, "This is the
That's so
yo-yo that
cool.
President Reagan gave you. This is what it is." And I said, you're not even going to understand how auspicious that was.
Mm.
And I've seen that you've got a couple, it looks like you got a couple pictures with some presidents. It looked like you had Obama and you had Clinton out there.
Yep.
And
yeah, I got a chance to intern in the White House back in '99. That was a fascinating experience.
Okay, now we got to talk about that. So you got to be inside the White House and intern? All right, let's talk about that experience. I want to know what that's about.
So it all started when I was registering for classes that semester. And it was the first time we had our computerized class scheduling system, so none of the prerequisites were loaded in. So you could literally schedule yourself for whatever class you wanted. And I figured it was better to ask forgiveness than permission. So I scheduled myself for a graduate level political speech writing class. And I was the only undergrad in the class. Professor Mark Siegel, it was Mondays 6 to 10 and 9:58 p.m. on one of the classes. He said, "Oh, before I forget, a former student of mine is running the White House intern program this semester. If you're interested, let me know." So I go up to him after class. I'm like, "I'd love to intern in the White House. I have no idea if it's open to undergrads or just grad students." He's, "I don't know either. Here's his number. Call him, tell him I said hi." So I called, I talked to him. He said, "Well, we're filled up for this semester, but you can apply for next one, but don't get your hopes up because thousands of people apply for every spot." I said, "Thank you so much." Gave him my address. He was going to send me out the stuff. I said, "Oh, and Mark Siegel says hi." He says, "Wait, you know Mark?" I said, "Yeah, he's my speech writing professor." He pauses a beat and he said, "All right, you start tomorrow morning, 8:00.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how was that? What kind of experience was that being in the White House?
Oh, it was great. It was great meeting the other interns. It was great babysitting members of the press before the press briefings. Got to do like sort of the press clippings at 4 a.m. That the president and vice president would read. Anything in all the magazines and newspaper articles that mentioned them or their policies. It was just a fascinating, fast-paced environment.
So you wanted, you had a childhood dream of being the president.
Mm-hmm.
After being in the environment, how does that dream look today?
Oh, even more so. It's something that, what is it? It's like Fight Club. If you want to be president, you don't talk about wanting to be president. So all these senators that want to be president sort of learn to shut up about it. But to me, being president is about leverage. It's about the leverage of the attention you get and the actual levers of power that you have access to truly make a difference in people's lives and to work together with people that agree with you and people that you don't agree with you to actually make the structures of society better serve people and helping them achieve their goals and helping us achieve common goals. So I still think it's something that if cards go a certain way, I would love to compete for someday.
That's awesome. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
What can come. I did local politics here, and I realized a lot just doing that locally on neighborhood councils, and I realized just how we don't have as much. I don't know. We just don't have as much. So, but I'll tell you what, man. Let's wrap this up now that we got the that story out of the way. I know you got other commitments you got to do. You got students to go with. So
I do.
Let's get ready and rock and roll, Josh. I had a good hour with you. Yeah, it's awesome, man. I'll have this out in audio later today. It'll be out in audio also, and then you can just go ahead and share it on your platform. I gave you a YouTube link, so you can share that out. That they can watch that live on what we just did.
Awesome.
And now you have something also. Hey, listen, you want to listen a little bit of what I do? You can go to our podcast when you're starting to get it. I'll put you out in I have a lot of students here, and now I have somebody that, hey, when you want to look at college, and that's something I'll talk to you a little bit later about too. Maybe there's some other avenues to look at, even for my girlfriend's son who's wanting to be, he's going to be a physical therapist, and now you got to go to the next level. It's not just
I actually just had a client applying for her doctorate of physical therapy schools, and she got in everywhere she applied, significant scholarship money, and actually got into places that her boyfriend with a higher GRE score didn't get in.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about this, and let's see, and I'll have Kat get on with me, and we'll see what you can help with her son, and give us directions on what to do. Sound good?
That would be my pleasure. This has been so much fun. Talk to you soon.
All right, Josh. We'll see you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.